And one day in the books.
One day in the books. It's March 18th, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast. We are episode 565.
Yep, 565. We have a special guest in the studio today.
Yeah, Maddie. Maddie's in here, curled up in between us. She's going to have some company soon, too. But yeah, she is curled up. And if we falter today, she'll let us know. She's keeping things locked down here at the hub. It's first time tuning in. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, that your time is valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcast. We'll do race recaps. We'll also do race previews. For the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, what our athletes are going through. We work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking into their first 5K or even sprint triathlon, all the way up to elite level amateurs trying to head back to Kona, win races, and then everyone in between from all over. And we'll use the conversations with them, our experiences and the feedback, Training Peaks comments and the like to drive the topic and discussion some days. We'll also go into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be a part of that awesome community, just answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. A lot of really great people in there with a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom and loads of experience. So whether you're a newbie or a seasoned veteran, there's a lot of information and education there to be had. So be a part of the conversation and don't sit back and be a lurker. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. The only agenda that we have is to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Mm. Yeah. I'm sipping on mud today.
Mud?
Yeah.
Is that a coffee drink?
It's one of those coffee sort of alternative things that they're pushing out there now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I signed up and
this feels like an ad.
Oh, I know. Shit.
Yeah, this feels very much like an ad. I'm sipping on mud. He's giving us the down and
well,
dirty.
I'm not so sure I'm
Get
crazy about it. How about this for an ad? I'm 4 packages unopened because I'm on the renewal. Yeah,
dude, people get you with the renewal thing.
Oh man, I don't even know how to quit it.
I know they keep you coming back. I know they put it in the fine print. They're like, you can quit anytime after 5 years is over with.
Yeah,
it's like people who sign up for like the like those meal delivery services. They have like 19 TV dinners in their freezer. They're like, we'll start again next week. We'll do it again next week. And they're like, and then but that's why subscription services are outstanding.
And it's now time to introduce our new subscription, t-shirt subscription service.
We have a t-shirt. We do. Hey,
every month.
We don't do ads. Obviously, we don't do sponsors besides that really awkward advertisement we did for Mud Coffee a second ago. But there are ways to support the podcast and what we do, and that is through some of our gear. We have some awesome gear and apparel we just launched on our website, which is C26Triathlon.com. You click on the online store, and we just put out a whole bunch of new shirts with some of your most favorite quotes. I think we've got my personal favorite is the brown one, which is Burnt Biscuit Cafe. That is easily my favorite. I'll be rocking that because I'm a table of one at least 3 times a week at the Burnt Biscuit Cafe. I've got my loyalty card. I think we've got another one of my favorites, which is Practice Not Quitting. I know your favorite one maybe is Age as a Mindset, which is another good one in the quote shirt.
Yeah,
you got Do It Now. So there's a lot of great shirts that look different from what we've done in the past. So get on there. Pre-orders I think are done on Monday. So hop on there. Maybe extend a little bit since we got this podcast out late. But go there. And again, if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, wearing some of our gear and supporting us, that's a great way to do so.
Yeah, it is. And there's other gear up there too, the traditional stuff.
Yep.
You can go with that as well. But yeah, I like that idea of maybe one new t-shirt a month. You just sign up or a subscription, and
we'll just send you one. We could say something like, C26Triathlon.com. On the back, on the front, we can say Kentucky's overrated. So for all of you listening to this podcast on your lonely drive down I-74, I believe, heading back from Indianapolis with your blue shirts crumbled up in the trunk, bye-bye. I enjoyed every moment of that loss that Kentucky had because they're always so over. They're loaded. Coach Cal's living off dreams from back in 2015. But hey, at least you guys might not have any, wins or stripped from you like you did back in Memphis in the day, or was it UMass? That's where he was before. But listen, it was a wonderful game to watch. My Tennessee Vols, we were in fuego. We were on a roll. Listen, March Madness is the greatest, and it's the greatest because, and this is very much, I think, maybe the topic we'll go with today, it's anybody's ball game. Right.
And anybody's ball.
I was telling you before, I had a conversation with an athlete who was, unfortunately, a UK fan. But he made a comment that I thought was very applicable to most athletes, or not most, but a lot of athletes, in that he said, he was talking about Kentucky's talent versus, I'm obviously a UT fan, and our talent. And he said, I think we have a higher ceiling. We're more talented, but I also think we have a lower ceiling. I think we have a bigger bottom. And I got to thinking about how many athletes both train and race that way. It's either all or nothing. There is no kind of in between. They either go full gas and they have the best race of their life, which again, you only have one, or it's a DNF or a do not start because they don't want to risk not PRing, and they make too many mistakes and don't go by feel. And listen, it's race season. We got Puerto Rico 70.3 coming this weekend. We got Frankfurt 70.3. We are in it. Okay, we are full gas. It is time, and that means it's time to start talking about racing. We did racing. I think we did pacing and racing or something. Was there the one we did on Tuesday?
Yeah, racing.
Yeah. But I thought it was an interesting topic, and I think just watching the NCAA tournament again, why it's one of my most favorite 2 weeks a year is because anybody can win on any day, and talent, while it means something, it doesn't mean everything. And I think that's an attitude that I think a lot of, people have in general, that, they just got, it's just in their DNA, right? They're just natural, right? They're just athletic.
Right.
For the most part, that's a very small percentage of that is true. They're maybe the one best, the Michael Phelps or the Jordan or the other people, that's just in them, right? But even Jordan, he wasn't a starter for his high school basketball team. They might have it genetically, they might have it in their DNA or whatever, but they also have that one it factor that is, I'm going to work so much harder than you are, and I'm going to devote everything I have to get better. And I think even as adults, right, we pick up this sport as a hobby. I think a lot of times athletes mail it in by kind of using that as an excuse. I'm not as talented. I can't win. When you watch March Madness, the teams that go for the upsets, if you're watching the UK game yesterday, they were not scared at all. They had played with no fear, which again, we've discussed this before. When you line up at the race start and you see, you walk to the starting chute and you're hopping the water, you can see the ones that are super nervous, right? And they're kind of amped up and they're shaking their head, and then they're not smiling because they're way too serious. And then you see the ones that are just kind of having a good time and relax. You're like, that's the one I need to watch out for. And I just think it's a great study and observation, kind of human psychology and approach to being ready and to be your best. It's from the chin up. It is 100% from the chin up. Obviously, playing with your heart has a whole lot to do with it, but it is chin up, and it's about being smart. It's about how bad do you want it, and it's about not being afraid of being in the moment.
Yeah, you can tell it's like racing free, or they're playing freer. And I would like to, at least get one little dig in for.
I know you will. Let's softball that one up for you.
I mean, because here's the thing: is I've always sort of I've sort of liked Iowa, but I think they kind of their fans get a little bit they act like they're as good as Wisconsin, and they're really not. And it shows up every season. In the last 20 years, Wisconsin's been to 10 Sweet 16s in 20 years. That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Yeah, 3 Final Fours.
That's pretty solid too.
Iowa has been to 0 Sweet 16s.
Overrated.
So how in the world is there even a conversation? And then everybody's got them going all the way, and it's a prisoner of the moment. Yeah. And but I feel bad though. I kind of get a soft spot in my heart for those teams that lose like that, because I know what it feels like to really sort of. They probably already had their Final Four shirts printing.
Oh, stop it. No, they didn't. The good teams don't do that.
No, Iowa did, though. I bet there was one print shop in Iowa City that had that. I guarantee they had them designed up and ready to go. But anyway, so I do feel bad, though, because, man, it's like a heart wrencher when you're expecting your team to go. I mean, last 2 years, they've had Player of the Year. Right. Iowa has, and they've been out in the first and second round.
Yeah, well, UK.
In the country.
Yeah. UK.
Same thing.
One of the players of the year.
Anyway,
we'll stop taking our digs. On a serious note, two things that always stand out for me. Like you said, don't ever take anything for granted, right? And that's why I feel like I told you that's
so huge.
When Tennessee got a 3 seed, I said it kind of ticked me off, but I said I think it was kind of good for him because getting in your own head, right, good or bad, is always a bad thing. Like you and I always preach, like all the time, don't get too high. Don't get too low, stay somewhere in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you get too high or when you get too low, and this goes with everything in life, it goes with training, goes with your career, goes with relationships. When you get too high and when you get too low, guess what happens? You make poor decisions, right? Something happens. Your either ego gets too big and you make decisions you wouldn't normally make because you feel like you can't do anything wrong, or you don't prepare enough, right? Like in training, because like you see this, honestly, you see this a lot. They call it the sophomore slump, right? They call it in the pros. They call it in collegiate sports, but I also see it a lot in Ironman racing, the sophomore slump. You did one race, you trained, your focus for the race was, most people, their focus for their very, very first big race ever, whether it's a marathon, Olympic, 70.3 full, the first time you do it, you check every box, right? You are the most detailed. You're maybe not the most committed, but you're the most, well, maybe you are. Maybe the most committed to not, you're have that healthy level of fear to where you're like, you know what? I'm not missing it. I'm doing it. I'm getting it done. I know I had a busy day, but I'm gonna get my third minute because I'm scared to death. I don't know what's gonna happen. Once you get one under the belt, then that's when life and the commitment and making those kind of excuses where I've already done it before, like I can figure it out. Those add up what they lead to is you're not prepared, right? And so that's in the bad part of the ego, like I think plays into it, where you think you can do it, taking things for granted. Every Ironman, every 70.3, frankly, every race that you do is hard. Everyone, because they all bring their own type of, whether it's distance or speed. Some people would rather do a 70.3 than an Olympic and race it all out, right? Because everything hurts in a different way. Every race you do has a certain level of problems that can be created by your lack of preparation or the fact that you don't like the intensity that you have to bring to it. All the things. And the same goes for, the other end of the spectrum, right? It's not your ego, but it's like you're doing it out of fear, right? I mean, you could listen to the commentators yesterday watching the games. You're like, they looked like they're kind of playing scared. Like they're like, hey, we don't want to be the team that loses, right? We don't want to be the team that gets upset, real early. And then you start getting, timid. You start getting a little tight when you take your shots. You wouldn't normally, because you're not playing free. You're playing scared, right? You don't want to be the team that's favored and get upset. So now you're not thinking about doing your normal thing, taking your normal shot, going through the flow. You're not doing the normal things that come so naturally. You're doing the opposite because you're thinking so hard to not screw up that you end up screwing up, right? And that's also what you see so much in triathlon and racing, when people go out there that are so terrified not to not screw up. You might get across the line, but you're never going to fully reach your potential, right? So it behooves all of us, I think, to always stay, you can call it humble, right? You can call it whatever you want to, but it's even keel, right? They're unflappable. Like they just kind of seem like they never show an expression, right? That you can't tell if it's a great day for them or a bad day for them. It's just even. And those are the athletes and those are the kind of types of individuals that to me are the most successful.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a thing too, like you can go in that race with nothing to lose and feel good and free, and then sort of look up halfway through and go, damn, I'm doing pretty good, man. And I better, and then you start getting in your head. I saw that yesterday too in a couple of those games where some of those, I think Georgia State, that Gonzaga game was like tied at half. And of course they lost a couple of players, but they started getting nervous. Mm-hmm. They started choking because Gonzaga kind of turned the screws on them. But yeah, I think that's we talk about, pacing the other day, the title of that podcast, and it's a mental and physical thing. It's like mentally pace yourself through this race because it's a long day, and if you get too excited or too kind of caught in the moment of that, first couple 100 yards of the swim when you got kind of hit, we talk about that, like don't overreact, because it's just like things can change so much throughout the course of it. How many times you've been out just, racing is the epitome of, I might not feel great in the beginning, but you might feel great later.
Yep.
that happens in training all the time. So why can't it happen in racing? So don't it's just sort of like, oh, well, it's not working yet. So you got to kind of play around and trick your mind a little bit and figure out ways to get it done. I mean, I think that's really what it boils down to is like, you're saying these teams with these far less talent, they're just figuring out ways, man. They're just kind of creating a problem for the other team as much as they can. And like you're saying, a little bit more effort in this situation than the other person, or, run by somebody and make it look like you're feeling good, like little games or whatever, but
nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose
is the best position to be in sports because you've already won, right? No one and if I go back in my own racing, I can't call it a career. I'm not professional. My own racing through the years as a, hobbyist, the best races I've put on, to me, getting to the start line was the win. And all I had to do from then on was just kind of finish. And the finishing, and that's why I think it's always important for athletes' number one goal always to finish. Because if you have that mentality, right, and sometimes it can weigh you down, like, oh, well, I'm going to be too conservative. But as long as your goals, being, showing a lot of gratitude for making, that's why these teams that make it to the tournament, they're like, they didn't expect to be there. They're playing with house money, baby. Like they that's who you're afraid of, right? They might, there's no tape on them, that you have. They're just playing free. And with that becomes basically no pressure, right? And absolutely no pressure, which is free and flexible and, just going with the flow. And I think when it comes to racing, the more you can ignore too, like you're talking about, like people talk about momentum a lot of times in sports. Long course racing is void of it. It should be void of the decision of going with them, because that's when, like you said, 20 minutes, you might feel like you are going to crush your PR by 3 hours. And then 45 minutes later, you're not sure you're going to make it 2 more steps, right? And then, but it's about ignoring, right? Going back to, don't get too high and don't get too low. Endurance sports is so much about ignoring the outside, noise and, the applause or the boos in your head that you might hear. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're crushing it. You're going to kill it today. And then it's, you suck, right? There's no way you're going to finish this. I think every person goes through that mentality, like every time they race, like, you're terrible, you're slow, why I'm never doing this again, or man, you're crushing it, go ahead, push it a little bit, you got this. It's about ignoring the other ends of the spectrum, right? And we talk about this a lot with our athletes in training. 10% of your workouts, you're going to feel like you should go pro. The other 10%, you're one click away from posting your bike on eBay. The other 80%, this kind of is what it is, right? And that's how it should be, because that's where the majority of the work is done. That was like the 80-10-10 rule was something that I learned like a long, long time ago when I was when I started establishing, kind of a career and working. This guy said, listen, don't worry about the 10% of people. They're always going to be happy. You could literally shut the door in their face and like, oh, they're like, excuse me, right? It's like Chick-fil-A. It's like no matter what they do, you're always like, thank you, I love you guys. The other 10%, they're gonna find something wrong with it no matter what. You can't please them, right? It's the 80% that you have to convince that you should come back, or that we're the right place for you, right? That's the one you have to work the hardest for. The outliers happen whether you like it or not. And that's kind of how training is. And that's how I think going into racing is. It's like, focus on the 80, right? You're going to have the outliers one way. You're going to have the great moments and the bad moments. Most of them are out of your control, and most of them are unpredictable, right? The best workouts you have throughout the year, the majority of them are unpredictable, right? They might even come on the days where you thought the other end was going to happen. Like, I'm going to have a terrible day. And then you go out and you absolutely smoke it. Same goes for the other end. They happen when you might think you're going to absolutely go out and smoke a run. You go 5 steps and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a long day.
Right.
It's when you least expect it. And so just being, very, very vigilant to not getting too high and not getting too low, being calm, being steady, like that. Not only is that the mentality you have in training, but also the mentality you should have when you race.
Mm-hmm. And I talk about breathing and meditation a lot. And for me, that's what it boils down to. It's like this extremely patient day. So you just can't get too far out of yourself either way. I think that's the thing about emotions. Like sometimes you can get jacked up in an Ironman at the start of a swim, a lot of times at the start of a bike, you go out there and you feel great and you start, push. So I'm always talking to athletes. I talked to an athlete the other day about starting their run. And, I was kind of like getting to know him or whatever. I was like, what kind of, overall pace do you think you could run? And whatever it was, 10 minutes or something. I said, well, all right. So the first, few miles of that Ironman, I think you should go out at a 13-minute pace. And actually, no, this is a half marathon. I'm sorry. So I was like, yeah, go out at 12 if you want to do a 10. And he's like, what? I was like, well, I said, because I know I'll tell you 12 and you'll still go like 9:30. Right. So I'm trying to, stretch you one side just so you slow down a little out of the gate. Yeah. And you get, it's that there's no real place in Ironman or in endurance for hype and exciting moments. It's all got to be steady. And that's why I talk about breathing. It's just like, it's really like, I think a lot of times when I meditate, I'm just practicing not getting excited, in a way. So it's like, cause it does take a lot to, it's like, you can get kind of, I don't want to say boring out there cause it's hard, but you know what I mean? Your mind can go all over the place and you're looking for, highs and, like something to jack you up and whatever, but that's kind of not the real purpose, or it's not the best attack, to be high and then you might hit a crashing low. You just want to, like you're saying, stay in the middle.
When you get hyped,
breath, you
become reckless. Mm-hmm. Most people become reckless. You make decisions you wouldn't normally make, right? When things are going really, really well, that's when you can create, an environment or opportunities for things to go wrong, right? And you stop doing what you were doing that got you to the point to where you're feeling great, and then you make decisions you wouldn't normally make that send you backwards, right? Like I always like when I'm watching Tennessee play basketball. And if you like basketball or March Madness, you're going to hate this podcast, but whatever. Is I always yell and I say, like yesterday or some games they're up, 7, 12, or 8 minutes left, and they are on the floor and then they start running. I'm like, slow down, like take your time, right? Understand where you are in the game, understand the clock, milk some clock, take your time, run your flow. Like what got you to this point anyway, instead of just like, oh, well, we're up by 15. We can just, run the court and jack threes, right? And that's what we always forget what got us there, right? If you're feeling great in the moment of, and it goes both ways. If you're feeling great in a race, remember how you got there. It was by just staying the course, right? And I talk to a lot of athletes about this. They will say, hey, all right, this race was great. I was able to do this, I PR'd, now what's next? What do you do differently? I'm like, well, we don't do anything differently. Why would we change things? Like, remember what got you here, right? Consistency, focus, listening to your body, being smart. That's how we got here, right? But everyone thinks that once you get one place, and the only way to get to a different place or a better place is to do things differently. Yeah. Instead of just continuing to do things over and over again. They're the same, right? Yes, you should tweak things and change things if they are needed, but most people change things for no other reason, but just because they feel like they have to change them, right? And that's when you become erratic and reckless, as you just make decisions based on triathlon training ADHD, which is what most self-coached athletes end up having. Is like they're all over the place. Like it's like swinging for a piñata, every 4 weeks, or it's like Lionel Sanders training. Every 9 weeks he's on a different kind of training program. The last one was worthless. But it takes, and that's why endurance athletes, while so exciting can also be very boring, right? Because it is a whole lot of the same all the time, but it's the ones that are so steady or that are so steadfast in their training and their belief that they don't end up becoming reckless one way or the other, because they don't jump for. It's not the low-hanging fruit, it's the fruit that's not there, right? Like, I want to do something because I think I can do this, and they end up digging themselves a hole or getting injured or going way off course. That's what happens in racing too. Is like, I'm feeling really good today. I'm going to push it even harder instead of just recognizing, I think I'm just going to ride with it, right? I feel real like I had this feeling yesterday when I got on the bike. I didn't know how long I was going to ride. I just got on to ride. And which will probably drive some people crazy, but I was like, I just got on to ride. But within the first 20 minutes, I felt, man, I feel really efficient today. Like, one of those days where you just feel aerobically efficient, right? You feel like you're moving in a good place and you're aerobic. No, you don't know what that feels like. I felt aerobically very efficient. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, like most people's, first instinct is, oh, then it's time to smoke it, right? It's time to, I got it today. But my first thought was, then I'm going to be as efficient for as long as I possibly can, right? It wasn't to smoke it and go like really, really hard. It was, all right, I feel really, really good for a reason. Let me, kind of value and appreciate that reason and do exactly that and feel and stay efficient today, not force out a zone 4 workout at the very end. Just stay efficient and work the zone that felt really, really efficient and really, really good. Because I was momentarily tempted to be like, oh, you know what? Intervals are going to make me, I got it. But instead I was like, wait a minute. No, stay the course, do what you feel, watch over the basketball game, ride easy. And that didn't mean, I think, the best decision for me. But most times athletes think the exact opposite, right? I feel really, really good. Let's see if I can do great, right? And feel great instead of recognizing what their body is telling them, which is, this is probably what I want to do today, being okay, not going for the extra 20% because in reality, the chances of you getting it, yes, they're there, but also there's a great chance you might drop 20% and having to cut your ride short because you made decisions that you shouldn't have made that day.
Yeah, we're on this thing that has always sort of perplexed me because I was a late comer to this game, the endurance game. I always played other types of sports and everything like that. And the mentality is kind of get stronger, get more explosive and, and whatever. But endurance sports really is sort of like that. And I think you might have used this analogy at one point, but it's sort of like, when you start when you're 18 and you start putting $100 a week in the bank or in investment, and you just do that for the rest of your life, Mm-hmm. And then at the end of your life, you've got a crap ton of money. But like a lot of people are like, wait, this is going good. Let me just take all of this and let it ride on, on the roulette table of stock markets or whatever. Instead of just being stable and consistent and staying with your plan, everybody kind of wants to be like, all right, well, I've done really well. So like, how can I really double this up right now faster? And I think that's the mentality that sometimes we get in endurance sports, but because we don't realize that it does take patience to kind of like build up your strength, and that building up your strength is what makes you go faster in an Ironman. It's like your top end speed really isn't that relevant. It's all about, like you're saying, the efficiency and how long can you hold it. And I know we've talked about that many times, but I think a lot of times it takes a while to sit in, especially with people who are kind of new. And like you're saying, you have a good race, and then it's like, all right, now I need to start doing, crazy intervals on the bike all the time and doing like the craziest stuff because I got to get faster and more explosive, when it's just a patience game and you just keep kind of doing what you're doing. And like you're saying, have energy and feel strong on the course. And then, instead of like having this weird illusory sort of
I like that word,
kind of approach to things where I'm not getting faster, like top end speed. And I just don't see how you could ever get faster when you get like to my age. You know what I mean? Like fast. Like I feel like I'm still okay I'm probably about the same top end speed as I was when I started this sport, like for 30 seconds or something like that, on kind of a interval push, but maybe not even, but that doesn't mean that I don't think I can be faster in racing. And we talked about that. It's just like, it's a matter of just getting better, because like whenever in an Ironman, do you feel like you could be running your top speed? It's more about like your hips hurt or your, hammies are blown, or your quads are shot from the cycling. Mm-hmm. And like you're talking about that exciting, like getting caught in the moment kind of thing. I think one thing is like when we did that one Wisconsin with that Barlow hill, that's kind of a simulation of like what happens when you get too excited. We didn't have a choice. We had to go up that thing, but that was a steep hill at mile 40. And a lot of people that probably jacked up their bike the rest of the ride. Mm-hmm. Just that quick little section. And if you do that on your own, we had to do it. And some people, got caught up in the fact that they probably weren't prepared to handle it. But if you do that on your own, why? Then you can screw up your whole race, just based on a quick decision.
Well, I think a lot of it comes in this, again, training, life, racing, is know who you are and what you've done and how you got yourself there, right? Like you see that when, again, going back to March Madness, when other teams force other teams into playing their style of basketball. Right, you hear that all the time, and like you want to force them to. You've seen in racing, right? The professional races when you have guys coming out of the water that are high front pack swimmers, and they know they can't outrun some of their counterparts. Their goal is to put as much pressure as possible on those runners to maintain, to maybe even overbike to take chips out of their armor. So they can't run as fast, right? It's in all professional sports. That's really the name of the game. For me to race or play, race my race, or for me to play my game, to put you on your heels to where you have to feel like you have to do something different, right? You have to race differently. And a lot of athletes make those minute by minute decisions when they race because they might not. And I think a lot of it comes just down to objectivity, right? Especially within ourselves. In understanding who you are, where you are, and the training that you've done when you go into a race, what you've prepared for, what you haven't prepared for. And just in this, I think we have the title of one of our podcasts a long time ago was, maybe our first 100 was, race with the horse you trained on.
Yeah.
Right. And the one that got you there, right. In playing your game and being smart. If you're a great runner, you've done more, then be more conservative. Right on the bike, that's why the sport is, again, so wonderful and honestly also so incredibly frustrating, is that it's 3 sports together. It is not 3 individual disciplines. It's 3 disciplines that make up a sport. Mm-hmm. And they are all connected, right? They all overlap. And you have to understand that when you race, and you have to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you need to push, where you can't push. If you're an outstanding runner, don't push it on the bike to not give up enough time. Understand you're a great runner. Hold back a little bit more on the bike so you can, maximize your strength, which is running, instead of giving it away on the bike. But at the same time, when it comes down to training, don't give away your strength by neglecting your weaknesses. And that's just one of those things where. And that's also, like we talked about with race with the horse you trained on, there's also different horses for different courses, and like understanding once you get to a certain level, what's going to get, again, basketball, they talk about matchups. That's just a bad matchup for them, right? They might be the best, they might be a much better basketball team, better athletically, but if they run into a bad matchup for a team that runs a slower style offense, or runs a zone, like a 2-3 zone or something they're not accustomed to, they're like, that's not a good matchup. That's not something they're used to.
Right.
Same goes with courses, right? Athletes that are again, had this conversation with the same guy, Logan, at the beginning of the podcast. He's doing Ironman Arizona. We were talking about the conditions that it might be, and he's like, I like the fact that it'll be my first open water swim, but I like open water, like rough, like it all, because I know I'll be more comfortable when everyone else will be uncomfortable. And the confidence knowing that you're comfortable, which again goes back to training and preparation. That's why I feel very lucky to have grown up swimming year round and be comfortable basically in every body of water, that I want it to be as challenging as possible, because there's confidence in knowing that you're comfortable while other people are uncomfortable.
Right.
Same goes for bike courses. Like you've talked about before, you're much more comfortable and more confident on courses like Wisconsin, because that's more your style of a course anyway. You don't want to, as an athlete, you don't want to be an arrow. You'll never do an Ironman in Florida, right? Or because you want to be an arrow for 5.5 hours. Like you like, getting up, moving around, but you're also more comfortable in biking. So your comfort / knowing other people's, that are uncomfortable gives you obviously more comfort, but more confidence, right? Mm-hmm. And I think setting and same things goes or running, like, or just racing in general, training and, going for a colder race or a hotter race. Like if you race well in heat, you go into it knowing you got the same conditions, but you're also thinking, yeah, I'm comfortable in this, and I know you're not, which gives you more confidence to be even more comfortable in the race that you're doing. And I just think it's very fascinating in how athletes pick races to do. And obviously, like you can pick experiential races, destination races where you're not going to PR, but you just want to really, really, really challenge yourself. But ultimately, if you want to do your best against the field, then know where you're most comfortable, right? Because that's when, again, you're going to make the fewest amount of the fewest mistakes, right? Like even some teams play better. You were talking about Wisconsin, like they're playing in Milwaukee and you're like, yeah, I would rather kind of not almost play in Milwaukee because it might be a little more pressure playing in front of your hometown. Same goes for racing. If it's a hometown race, everybody, it might be a little too much pressure for you. Like go somewhere where nobody knows your name. Nobody's going to know that you're doing it. We've had a lot of athletes, just basically race in secret for they don't tell their like 2 family members and then no one, because they like showing up under the radar. It gives them confidence. Some people don't like, and we do like an athlete race roster. Sometimes people say, don't put me on it. I don't want the extra eyes. It makes me nervous. It makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I do better when I don't feel like other people are watching me. Know those, listen, knowing where you're comfortable is knowing your strength, and knowing both of those is what gives you confidence to do your best.
Yeah. And I do think that that's an underrated part of racing. Like, again, I'll talk about, most triathletes don't grow up swimming like you did, and they learn it late, and their main focus is always about getting faster. And I think that's natural. Most of us just want to get faster and faster and faster in the pool. And I'm always like, no, like whenever, and it took me a while to sort of understand this. Like, I think for sure, my limiters are in swimming. I can probably get faster, no doubt. But, like I go over to the pool the other day and I'm swimming next to this guy and he's just like, trying to sit, like I'm watching him. I'm like, yeah, and it's like watching you. He's like, you can kind of see what's going on there. But I think that's years and years and years of like body memory stuff that we're just not going to get at late, a guy like my age is not going to get there. So what's my next option? It's like to be the most comfortable I can in the water, in open water. In a race, like last year, this was one of the best. I mean, I know it was a downstream swim, but it was one of my best swims, Chattanooga.
Agreed.
Not only because it was fast and it was downstream, whatever, but I just really nailed it. Like I never got out of my box the whole day. And it was just sort of like, I don't remember like one situation where I got flustered by somebody hitting me or running into me. Granted, it spread out a little more, but still I had a terrible swim here last time. For me, but I think that idea of just being comfortable in the water, yeah, you work hard, push yourself, and you always say that too, is like you work hard in the water so when those situations pop up, you don't get, overly excited or anxious or anxiety. You want to push yourself in the water to be stronger, and then the goal of that is to build sort of that Cadillac engine that's really strong, but you can going 65 miles an hour is like nothing. And that's what you want to do in a race. For most triathletes in a swim, they just want to cruise right at the speed limit and not try to get, because, overheating that engine by trying to go 85 miles an hour, you might not be ready for that. And what's going to happen down the road because of that is just really for 3 minutes or whatever. You're going to try and save 3 minutes and throw your whole race out of whack. So the idea of just when you're training and swimming, just finding those spots where you can, that all day pace, where you're strong, you can just keep going and you're right there. That's like, you have to, like a lot of the training we do is there's, go hard and then settle in, go hard, settle in, like that kind of stuff. But I just think that's such an underrated aspect of everything is the comfort and the confidence factor, and you said it, like on the bike, I'm super confident. I don't mind rain. Nothing bothers me really on a bike course. And downhills, I don't mind speed. A lot of people are super uncomfortable on a bike.
Very.
You got to ride outside, man. I mean, like, there's, I don't know. It's like swimming too. How do you make up for lost time? I was lucky because I used to mountain bike when I was a kid and I was like 20 years old and I did a ton of mountain biking. That'll really, give you confidence on cycling, but there's got to be a way to find that, comfort zone on the bike as well,
There's a certain separation that athletes should figure out in training and become confident with, and that's the separation between things are happening around me versus things are happening to me. And most athletes let things are happening around me bleed into this is happening to me, right? Like, and that's an ultimate level of comfort that people have in the water, like myself. and you have, like you said in Chattanooga, it was more about things were happening around me, but I was okay because they weren't happening to me. Right. And so much of that is just is psychological, right? I'm doing my thing. All these things happening around me. It's not happening to me, right? It's just what it is, right? It's just like the chop can be 6 feet. There can be 1 million people, but if you can own your own space, it's more about these things just kind of happening around me. Like, I guess just gotta swim and do my thing, right? Yes, it's different, but it doesn't have to happen to you, and I think that's also life, right? Everybody. So many people let life happen to them when really life didn't happen to them. They just observed it, or they read it, or they thought about it, and then it bleeds into their own reality. And then all of a sudden they're like, but things are so terrible about this and that. And you're like, what? I see your life. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, nothing is wrong with your life. Your life is great. Yeah, but I'm like, you're choosing, right? You're opening the door and letting it happen to you. That's on you, right? It's not on the world. It's not on, blaming every single person on this planet about everything that's going on, good or bad, or giving too much credit, to one certain entity. It's like, you're like, it's your own life. You get to choose. And this is like the ultimate thing I have with life is like, you choose to be offended or not. It's your choice. Like, people that are so offended or that or even feel a certain way, like, you make that choice. And you can choose to not have that choice, and it lets you, make other decisions for the rest of your day. Or you can just choose to, that doesn't offend me. I'm just going to go on my daily life. Some people, they let other things and media and the news basically like, what do they call us, puppets with like the strings, like, that's kind of, marionettes. Yeah. That's how so many people from the time they wake up and the first thing they see on their phone, at the time they go to bed and whatever they watch, they are marionette puppets to, social media, other media platforms, news, comparison. Every move that they make isn't made by them. It's made based on a reaction from the rest of the world, right? Whether it's fear or guilt or, anything else. And we'd be all just so much better off by just letting other things happen around us and focusing on what we have the control over to do and to not do, and instead of letting it bleed into each other and finding reasons to make excuses. Get comfortable, right, with your own life and the things that you're doing, and then everything else. It's generally, it's fascinating to be able to disassociate from. It's not happening to me. It just happened, right? I just chose to let it offend me or had this impact on me, really just based by choice. Or I could figure out, it's very Obstacle of the Way, very stoic, like one of my favorite books from Ryan Holiday. It's like, you have the obstacle is a way. It's your choice, right? You to move over, move around it, to consider it a loss instead of just, it is what it is, and just move on. That's very, 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 very much how endurance sports and all sports are. Really, it's just like things happen. You just move through them instead of the other way around and being on the defensive the whole time. It's comfort, right? Again, it's not letting those bleed into each other. It's staying the course and do your own things. Make your own decisions based on you, not based on what's happening, around you, because ultimately it's yours. And if you want to get the most out of yourself, then you have to make decisions solely based on you. You see this, you even read about it in Training Peaks, and say, I was on Zwift, and this guy was, I was chasing this guy, and I blew up. Just blew up, and I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't hold it, but I blew up, made a decision. Or I went on a group run. I went with run with some buddies, and I overran. I shouldn't have. Or it happens all the time, and sometimes it's fun to do that, and I get it, and I've done it before, been there, done that. Again, Table of One, Burnt Biscuit Cafe. We've been there, but when it comes down to letting things consistently creep into your life that affect you in a negative way, that's on you, right? And then the same goes for. I talked when you get questions about, how do you, we had the question on a Zoom call months and last year is like, how do you, what do you do about, drafters and, on courses like drafters are everywhere at races. They're everywhere. Okay. How do you not let that affect you? I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's their race. If you want to draft, let people draft. Like, that's their choice, right? Go around them, right? Just be smart pace-wise. Don't let it affect you. Don't blow your race to smithereens by going on a 20-minute TT to drop the group of 20 dudes, right, between the 25 and 45 age group that are choosing to ride a train and cheat. Don't blow your race up because they're irritating you. Because guess who that's going to affect? not them, right? They're going to come off the bike super fresh because they're cheating. It's going to affect you, right? It's going to affect you. It's kind of like they say about like, resentment. It's like, drinking poison and expecting it to kill somebody else, right? And that's how it works. Like that's how the people get so offended and so like make these irrational decisions in races. Like make your own choices, be steadfast in them and at least feel like or know that they're going to benefit you in a positive way instead of a reaction way to someone else or an experience that's happening that's negatively.
Back to the marionette puppet. Those things are creepy, by the way.
Yeah, they're super creepy.
But when you said that, and you're talking kind of about how you can get led down different roads during the day from the minute you get woke up and everything like that. And you just think about how hard it is right now to not get caught in that shit. It's like this FOMO. We're so afraid of missing out on everything, and there's nothing that we're missing out on. Really kind of when it boils down to it's such a weird thing. And, like what you're saying about drafting and you're afraid you're missing out on the party or whatever. Sometimes I'll join those parties because I am older. But, hey, it's like
you have been smacked with the 5-minute penalty, 5-minute drafting penalty at Goose Pond 7.3 back in 2012.
But I told you that was on the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, 2012. I'll let you let it down.
Yeah, nailed me. But
it did nailed you.
Hey, whatever, man. I took my chances and I got caught. That's the thing, right? It's like most people will be like, I'm going to spend a few minutes here. It's a long day out there. It's like if you can find a few minutes to get kind of in somebody's draft. I'm not saying
legal
don't
draft.
do it. Yeah. But yeah, I just, man, it is. It's like there's so much stuff going on and there's so many distractions and this fear of missing out of it's like the antithesis of endurance racing to me. It's like we really have to be in our own pocket and we have to be the people that are out on the farm chopping wood and not worrying about what the hell's going on in the other part of the world. You just have to realize and believe the fact that you're doing something that's going to benefit you in the race or benefit your health or whatever it may be. You got to know that in your core, You can't be trying to do stuff just because, your friends are doing it or whatever in training, unless you want to train with them. But I'm just saying it's so hard to mentally get in that place. And sometimes it feels like almost every year. I wish I could be in it more. There's usually a few weeks of the year when I'm just like right in a pocket. I'm getting up, I'm going to do my work. I know it's making me better, all that kind of stuff. I'm not thinking about anything else is going on. I'm not thinking of different ways to do it. I'm just doing work. And that's the thing is like you have athletes. I'm sure I have athletes that are just doing work. They're not really even saying anything about it. They're just kind of going about their business and they just might leave a comment once in a while or whatever, but every day you go in there and they've just done something. And it doesn't have to be the best workout in the history of workouts. It just has to be, I'm like, you just watch them and they're going to race well just because they're doing it on a day to day to day.
Yeah, most of them are quiet. Yeah. Not quiet, steady, right? It's never too up, never too down. But I think
that takes confidence. It's like, when I got in the sport, that's what I used to do. Like, it was this exciting thing and I'd be like, look what I did today and post. And, but the reality is I was doing it for the wrong reasons.
Well, it's confidence in that, and it's confidence in understanding that a singular workout, bad or good, doesn't define you as an athlete.
Or
right?
a person.
Yeah, or a person, right? You're not jumping to a conclusion that's like, oh, I've got it now, or I don't have it. I'm getting slower, right? They understand that it's all medium, right? It's all in the middle, right? They understand that they're not defined. Nothing is defined by 40 minutes, right? Like it's the sum, right? It's like, hopefully, when people die and like you got your funeral, no one's going to stand up and talk about that 1 30-minute span you did something really, really bad or awful. Hopefully they're going to talk about the net positive, right, of your life, like the influence it had over however long it was, right? That's how it works. And that's very, very similar to what, fitness and training and life and racing is. It's about the whole thing. It's not about a snapshot, right? And even though, the media would love to make it differently, it's about the, this one time, this one person, this one thing. And you're like, if there was a if you were all big brothered every second of every part of your life and every thought was broadcast above your head like those old school VH1 videos, like pretty sure no one would like you either. It's like, it's just like but that's what, that's how society has become. But no, I mean, it's don't stay the course, right? And it's a long year. Racing is starting. It's happening. It's going to be even more exciting in the next few weeks to kind of, tick off, but stay the course. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Don't get too full of yourself. Don't feel like you've gotten it all. Don't feel like you've lost it all. Just hang out in the middle, right? Because there's confidence in the middle, right? You don't need to be confidence ridden or fear ridden. Be in the middle, right? There's a lot of comfort in there, and comfort to me is confidence, right? And I think that's one of those things where you go into race day, and as long as you can have that, then you're going to be in a good spot. And so take that with you, and good luck to the rest of the basketball teams that play this weekend.
I'm getting nervous, by the way.
I'll be waking up basically by the time the Badgers are done playing tonight. If they go to overtime, I can probably wake up and watch it with Hayden. But yeah, good luck to everybody who's playing the rest of the weekend. That won't include Iowa or Kentucky. But the rest of you, good luck. Good luck to you. As always, go to our website, C26Triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And again, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, check out the online store with the new t-shirts we have. It's a great way to support the podcast and Mike and I. Check those out. Make a few purchases. We'll get those out. Have a great weekend. Race hard. Race happy. Have some fun. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. If you need anything from Mike, you can reach him, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at C26Coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy.
See you, dude.
See you.